Welcome to Crossing Home Plate. We actually have a name now, so that's pretty exciting. Last week we didn't. Normally I'd have the all-star big man Chris Davis with us, but he got called out for something today, so I get my full time with Cody Allen. 8 years in the majors, right? 7 of those with Cleveland.
Yep.
Indians back then.
Yep.
Guardians now. Primarily a closer. Retired as the all-time saves leader for Cleveland.
Yep.
Married 10 years to Mallory. Raising 3 boys.
3 boys. Yep.
Is that right? So plenty of testosterone in the household.
Yeah.
So living in Argyle, what's what's daily life like with 3 boys in the house? And
there's not a lot of rhythm right now. It's pretty much, it's a good type of controlled chaos. And I'm very fortunate. My wife's very fortunate. Our boys are very active. We're very involved. We homeschool as well.
Okay.
In the summertime right now, we're doing all the things. We got camps, VBS, sports, taking some family trip time, but, daily life for me right now, I'm doing a little bit of everything and a lot of nothing at the same time. So, coaching the teams, doing some stuff still with Cleveland. Like I was just saying earlier, got a chance to go up there for a little over a week and do some stuff with those guys. I go up there a few times a year. Every now and then get to bring the family with me. But yeah, just trying to, remain available, I guess, is what I'm trying to do.
That's great. That's great. So we talk a lot about, you guys have talked, like when we went took you and Chris to Texas Wesleyan, we talk a lot about you're going to be a former player.
Yeah.
A lot longer than you'll be a baseball player. And so
Yeah.
we talk about identity and things like that. But let's go, if we can, walk through just kind of what was growing up like, maybe through your time in college.
Yeah. I grew up, my parents are still married. They're still together. Like I had 2 parents in a home, twin brother and a sister. Sports and church were always a very big part of my childhood. But I grew up with a very legalistic understanding of the gospel and the Bible. And so that wasn't a problem until I kind of left for college and was on my own. And so there was a lot of misunderstandings there about what grace was and about what redemption was, and just really the true story of the cross. And I would say that I was probably a little bit biblically illiterate and maybe not as spiritually mature as maybe others, and didn't have that quite that understanding. But went off to college, went to UCF, University of Central Florida, straight out of high school, and had some mishaps there. I had Tommy John surgery. We had a coaching change. I actually got cut from that team.
Okay.
And I had to, this was before transfer portals and all that stuff. I had to transfer to, I couldn't transfer laterally from D1 to D1. And so I had to go to a junior college for a year. Went there for 1 year and then ended up at High Point University, just outside of Greensboro, North Carolina. Enjoyed my time there. And throughout that whole experience, it was very you're trying to make new relationships. You're at 3 schools in 3 years. And, it was a difficult time for me, cause my identity was placed in the game. And so when I got cut from that college team the first time, it was like, where do I stand? Who am I?
Everybody knows.
Yep.
All the people back home.
Exactly.
What happened?
And there's still relationships there, or friendships there. And then I'm playing junior college, which there's no knock on junior college, but there was a lure of, I was a Division I college athlete, and bam, you're not anymore.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a ding against the old ego there. And then I went back and, was at High Point, I had a great experience there, but it was still that, kind of struggle with well, last time, you were here, you weren't good enough, you got cut, bad things happen, who are you? Do you think you're as good as you are? You're kind of and this is one that I know Chris and I have talked about, but it's like underneath it all, there's this feeling of like, am I a fraud or am I a phony? Or, you're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. And through it all, even as I'm having those internal conversations with myself every now and then, I had a great year. And I got drafted and signed with Cleveland that year, and ended up having a good professional career. But those kinds of internal conversations were like always at play, and you're always trying to beat those back.
Gotcha. So back then, how did you navigate those other than just willing it?
It was it was one of those things that you just kind of beat down a little bit. Like you just try to suppress. And for me personally, you coped in different ways, whether it be with alcohol or, through, just pretend, you feel like you're just pretending, you're trying to play the part, right? Yeah. You're really trying to play the part. And in college, you can kind of get away with it a little bit more than I could when I was, in professional baseball, because, as I got older and I got married and had a family, you added what becomes pressures. They're not intended to be pressures, but you can create those pressures.
Sure. And
that's what I ended up doing, is I created those additional pressures. So in college, I could kind of get away with it more. But as I got older and into professional baseball and got married and started having kids, those things really started to kind of come to a head. But that was also too when my journey towards the Lord like really started. It really began, because I think for me, there had to be some brokenness revealed before I could turn towards, the cross.
Okay. So you ended up, you finished your college at High Point.
Yep.
Got drafted. Yep. About where'd you get drafted?
I was a 23rd round pick.
Okay.
So I was 698th overall.
Okay.
Yep. So I wasn't a high pick. I was grateful for the opportunity. And it was one of those things where, so I got drafted actually the year before out of junior college.
Okay.
And I didn't sign. I got drafted in the 16th round by Cleveland. Okay. So they drafted me twice. And I remember leaving, I went to St. Pete Junior College, and I remember getting drafted that year, and I was like, these guys are crazy. Like, I'm so much better than that. Like I'm going to get drafted so much higher next year and all this stuff. I get drafted 7 rounds later and signed for significantly less money.
True.
And so, but it was one of those things. I do think it was the Lord's protection a little bit, because out of junior college, like, I don't think I was, and I think maybe some of that language I was telling myself, or the reasons I was giving myself for not signing, was cover for, I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel mature enough.
Yeah.
I didn't feel prepared to go into a professional environment. And after a year at High Point, and I have to give credit to my head coach at High Point University, who I'm still very close with. His name is Craig Cozart, a disciple maker. This guy is an unbelievable human being. And he helped me out a lot with baseball, but he was, trying to help me become a man. Yeah. And I think after a year, kind of under his guidance, like, I just felt ready. Like, it was, when they drafted me, it wasn't even a conversation about, like, how much do you want to sign for? Or, kind of the negotiations that take place. I was just like, sure, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's just
want to play.
I just want to play. Yeah. I feel ready. Now it's my time to either prove myself or move on.
Yeah.
And so I really, I think there was some protection there, and there was some guidance by the Lord, that I was able to just hit the ground running with no kind of chains of expectations placed upon me. It was just like, hey, let's just go figure out what we're made of.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So kind of walking through, the multiple minor leagues, what did that look like? What was your path through the minors?
So I didn't spend a lot of time in the minor leagues, which was, it was not something that I expected at all. I went into it, like, hey, you're 700th overall pick, 690th overall pick. We're going to have to grind.
Yeah.
And we're really going to have to just take this thing day by day. And I think that's still true, regardless of how much time you spend in the minor leagues. But I signed in June of 2011, and I was in the big leagues in July 2012.
Oh, wow.
And so I made it quickly. I was the second guy from my draft class to make it.
Okay.
And it was the right place, right time. I had some outstanding coaches in the lower levels of the minor league because I was a starter in college, and I went straight to the bullpen in the minor leagues. And so there was a little bit of a learning how to transition there. And I had some coaches at the lower levels that really just kind of gave me a foundation of, what to do and how to approach it that allowed me to just kind of take off. And, I just kind of, it just took,
Nothing
it was a
normal deal.
Yeah. It was great. And,
I've got a friend that will probably get on here at some time that spent, I think, 7 years in AAA.
Yeah. Oh man.
He got stuck.
Yep.
Right behind somebody awesome, and it's life.
Yep. And, it's one of those things too. And AAA was difficult too, because that was the first time I was around like grown men with families and guys who had been up and been down. And like for me as a very green, young kid straight out of college, like I was excited to be there. I was so excited to be in AAA. And half those guys are so miserable to be in AAA because they are either maybe at the end of their careers, they're trying to get a footing in the big leagues and they just can't quite get it. And so that was my first real glimpse into a lot of like the mental and emotional like toll and turmoil of the professional career. And that's one of the things that was like, you see it, you don't understand it, but if you fortunate enough to play long enough, you will.
Yeah.
Like, you'll experience it and you will. And so I got to definitely experience that at the end of my career where, you're in the AAA. And so that was, looking back upon that was a good lesson that I'm able to take, where I had so much gratitude the first time I was there. And I think you can't, without perspective, like you can't have gratitude. And if you don't have gratitude, there's no joy in it.
Yeah.
You can't fully appreciate and be thankful for the blessings.
Yeah.
Without understanding that this is part of it, And so, first time through, I had tons of gratitude. I was just thankful to be there. I was 698th overall pick. I had, I got cut in from my college team. But then after, some successful years in the big leagues and, what I thought was going to be a much longer career than it was, at the end of my career, like you kind of lose gratitude and you start to become bitter, and you're just asking yourself why, or, all these things, instead of just saying like, hey, like this is part of it. Like this, like let's just keep grinding. Let's get to work. But we can't do that without gratitude, without perspective.
Okay. Well, let's talk about kind of the middle place.
Yeah.
So you got to the bigs. How old were you?
I was 23.
23.
Yep.
And then I think you've said that, really got a hold of your heart at 24?
Yeah, right about 23. At
23,
that, like when I first got called up. So it was really cool. Looking back upon it, at the time, it was really confusing, but looking back upon it, like I said, like going back to, so in college, like the thing I love about college baseball fellowship is college was this very, it's very hard to navigate. Especially when I went to 3 colleges in 3 years, there was, I know there's FCA and those things, but there wasn't like this discipleship or brotherhood kind of taking place within our team, right? And those are the guys you spend every day with, like that, like now the guys that I'm in Bible study with or the guys I go to church with, like that's my biblical community, right? And I never fully understood like how important that biblical community is for sanctification, for growth, like, and it's a place to rid yourself of any shame or guilt and kind of really turn that over. Sure. And so all that happened to me through college was that shame and guilt through all that stuff was starting to pile up underneath.
Yeah.
And it really made maybe repenting harder, because there's like, man, like if these guys only knew, or if like, they kind of, that identity of a phony or a fraud gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's harder to hide.
Yeah.
And so, but through it all, and through college and through the minor leagues, it was just like, man, I love God, I want to be a Christian. I want to lead a good life as long as I make it to the big leagues.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those things that was like,
interesting.
It was like this, man, as long as I make it, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
As long as and then I made it. It was kind of like chasing the carrot, right? Like I had this carrot that I was chasing, and then I made it.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, I was a month into my big league career, so I'm still fresh, like super fresh. And we were in Anaheim, California, and I'm still like, I have moments every day where I'm just like, I look around, I'm like, man, I just can't believe I'm here. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And, I'm playing against guys or playing with guys that, like, I'm like, holy smokes, man. Like, that guy's, And I have this moment where we're in Anaheim, and I'm just looking around, and I'm just like, is this it?
Yeah.
Is this all there is? And it led me down this path of like, this can't be it.
Yeah.
It was like, man, it only took a month for that shine to start to wear off.
That's
for that,
crazy.
That's all it was, and don't get me wrong, like I still had plenty of moments where I was just super grateful and all this stuff, but it had started to lose the impact, or like kind of like that balloon effect that it was like I was just kind of floating through it. And so about that time, I started to notice individuals on my team. One in particular was a guy named Justin Masterson, who was just, this guy loved Jesus, but he was very wise. This guy, you could just look at his life and I'm like, man, this guy is just bearing fruit everywhere he goes. And he had this aura about him that, wasn't like this Bible thumper, or this kind of, he loved everybody loved him, but everybody knew where he stood on things, right? Like you didn't have to question who he was. Like you knew who he was, and he was a leader. And so I really started to find myself gravitating towards him. And I think he could see me trying to figure out who I was, right? Because I was a guy who I did want the approval of others. Like it was really important to me. And I think a lot of that had to do with like a lot of the insecurities of some of maybe my shame and guilt. And, like I didn't want to be a phony. I didn't want to be a fraud. And so, as I'm starting to explore, okay, what does it truly mean to be a Christian, and what does it mean to really follow Christ? And, I'm like infant trying to figure out how to feed myself again, and asking questions to Justin and trying to spend time around him and some other guys. About that time, I met my wife.
Okay.
And she was so far beyond where I was. Like she was playing, she was a senior in college at the time, and she went to Bethel College in Minnesota. She was at a Bible college. She was, very, there was a lot of wisdom there. She was bearing a lot of the same fruit, and so I look back upon that and I'm like, man, I'm so thankful that I met my wife when I did.
Oh yeah.
Because
we all have that.
You know what I mean? Right. Like, man, if I would have met her a year before, I wouldn't have.
You weren't ready.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. And I was just so drawn to her. And like this, like, man, like that's what it really looks like to walk with the Lord. Like this is what it truly looks like. And so that was where my journey truly began towards like seeking the Lord. And don't get me wrong, like it wasn't like a straight uphill trajectory from there, right? It was, up and down, it looked like, like stock market ticker, you look,
it's all over the place,
all over the map. And, but man, like I really look back upon those times, and like that was truly the Lord's timing, and where I really started to kind of develop a biblical community. And in pro ball, we're very fortunate we had baseball chapel, so we had guys that could sit with during the season and just like, hey man, like, how do you do this in your life?
Sure.
Or so, yeah, that's kind of long-winded answer of, kind of the in between and, the trajectory of my faith, but also my career.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, let's talk about your first appearance.
Yeah.
I'm sure you remember it.
Oh yeah.
Right? So what was that?
I got Chris Davis to roll over to first.
Did you really?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
man.
it's so
man.
unfortunate he's not here.
No, I know. Yeah, it was against Baltimore, and man, I'll never forget it. So I get a phone call the day before, like, hey, you're going up, right? And so I'm in Cleveland. Our AAA team was in Columbus, Ohio, and so it's just a quick drive up, and they put me in a hotel, and don't sleep a wink the night before, and it's I think it was like a 4:00 game against Baltimore. And that Baltimore team was loaded. Jim Thome was on that team. I mean, they were loaded. And I remember, I'll never forget walking to the bullpen. The bullpen was in center field at the time. And I'm not an overly big guy or anything. And I'm walking out there, and we're walking past some of the guys for Baltimore, and they're all monsters. Adam Jones is huge. Chris is huge. Thome's huge. I'm like, these guys are giants.
Yeah.
And, we get to the bullpen, and phone rings early in the game. I think Thome hit a homer, and they were like, "Hey, get this guy, get Allen going." Yeah. It was quick, man. It was like, man, I had just sat down. It was like third inning.
I just got here. What's going on?
And they were like, "Hey, get Allen going." I was like, "All right, like here we go." And I'm warming up, man. I can't feel my legs, And I get out there. They call me. They put me in the game, and I start warming up, and man, I feel like I'm pitching from center field. Like home plate looks 200 feet away, and it was just one of those things. Like it was just it was a blur, right? It was really a blur, and but I pitched fairly well. I get out of the inning and kind of get back to the dugout and catch my breath, and they're like, "Hey, you're done." It was like, what just happened? I was like, what just happened? And but yeah, it was an unbelievable feeling.
Yeah.
Of you're there. It was like this.
Yeah.
Now it's real, and it's become real. But yeah, it was still one of those things where you're just kind of looking around, and they tell you, when you get called up, they tell you when you first walk into the stadium, they're like, hey, don't look up.
Yeah.
I was like, what's that? What does that mean? So in the minor leagues, most of the stadiums are either single level or double level, right?
Sure.
Like the big ones in AAA are like double level. And when you get to the big leagues, most stadiums, they have 3 decks, right? Yeah. And so you look up and you're like, oh my gosh. And it just seems so big. And that the pitcher's mound, man, it can be like you seem very small, but over time, it's just kind of, you just learn how to deal with it, and you're able to slow everything down, and you lean upon the guys who've been there before you. And
sure.
There is a brotherhood there, and, guys want you to succeed, and it doesn't matter. Even the guys in the bullpen that, you may eventually be taking their jobs or whatever. Like there is this level of like, man, this is how it's done. And, these are some things that helped me along the way. And so I was extremely appreciative of the group that was there when I got there, because they were true professionals that really helped me kind of get my feet under me.
So, and that's awesome that you rolled over CD. So,
yeah. Oh yeah. And it was like, I mean, I had him like 2-0, and I'm like, man, this guy, CD's big dude.
Oh, he was like, a monster. And it's
like, man, dude, like, do not miss middle in on this guy. And, I think I yanked he swung at a bad pitch, and he rolled it over to first. And I don't even think I got over and covered first, like, because I was like, oh, what's going on?
Just freak it out.
Yeah. So, but it was, it was wild.
Well, so, let's talk about, kind of faith and performance. I know this question when we were at Texas Wesleyan kind of came up. And, where you view, what's my part?
Yeah.
What's God's part? What's, how do you see those intersecting? How does that play out? And as you tell other people, younger players, what would you tell them in terms of what's your role? And
so when I played, I had, and especially as like a like high school and college, my understanding of my faith and how that intersected into my identity, because my identity was really tied up in sports. Like it was tied up into my ability as an athlete. And so I was really just using my faith to try and, I was like looking for the Lord's blessing upon my career, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? But I think those things have to be put in their places. And they have to be put in the right order. And I didn't quite understand that until I was pretty much on my way out the door. It was like one of those things like when I was in high school. I remember I played quarterback in high school, and, on Thursdays, man, I prayed hard. I was praying hard, like for a good game on Friday. And I was like, man, that's not really how it works, right? Like, and same thing with my baseball career. Like when things were going well, it's like when I blew a save was the real time that I really like hit my knees. And it's like, man, that's like such an unhealthy view of the gospel, because that's not what it is, right? The Lord's there for all of it, but he's not just there for that, right? He's not this, he's not, I had this conversation with a guy, and I think this is what you're pertaining to. I had a conversation with a guy that was like, hey, he was curious about the Lord. Like this guy wasn't a Christian. He was like, hey, like when you're praying for success, or you're like, does that mean like the Lord's like rooting against the hitter while you're pitching?
Yeah.
And it literally was like, I don't think he works that way, And it was one of those things like, man, as a Christian, like our life is going to be our life, right? Like we're given, like I was given this opportunity and these abilities, but he's not going to do the work for me, right? He's not going to prepare for me. He's not going to prepare for the Baltimore Orioles for me. And,
Sure.
I got to do the work and I've got to put it in, but also at the same time, like if I don't have Christ upon the throne of my life, then, and, my own career is on it, then, and that's what it was, then I became, crippled by fear, or, I latched onto these things that were fragile, and I would ride the waves of that fragility. I would ride the waves of, the 1-year contracts, or what does this team think of me? Or am I gonna get a long-term contract? Or am I gonna lose my job to this guy? Like I wasn't resting upon the truth that the creator of the universe came down, took on flesh, and died for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I should rest in that. And obviously, like, baseball is hard, and those careers, they have their ups and downs. But if I was able to rest in that truth, then everything else is just, man, how can I use this gift to honor, what he's already done for me, right? Because none of it's mine. And that was one thing that I think that mindset can be extremely toxic and hurtful.
Sure.
Is like, I viewed it as mine. Like it was my career. It was my money. It was my, I have to do this in order to obtain this, in order to give my family this. And that's not what it is. And I didn't understand that. I just didn't. It's the Lord's blessed me in a way that he's given me an opportunity to go and try and aspire to be the best that I can be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not up to him. It's not like he's like gonna like, bam, you're here, you're in great shape, or you're in, you're mentally prepared. It's like, no, I got to do the work. But the only way that I can be free to do the work is understanding why I'm free to do it. And so I just really had things out of order, and misplaced for most of my career, and that can make it hard.
Yeah. So when you guys got married, how much of your career was left when?
So we got married early. I mean, I was fresh in the big leagues when I got married. Yeah. And I mean, we started dating when I was in the minor leagues.
Gotcha.
And we started dating when I was in the minor leagues, and we got married probably a year and a half into my big league career, 2 years into my big league career.
Okay.
And there was a lot of, I guess, tension, and there was some, maybe some arguments or some, I guess, fights that took place within our marriage because of that misunderstanding. Like, I was carrying this weight
Gotcha.
that I had no business carrying.
Yeah.
And my wife could see it, and she's like, why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you doing this to us?
Yeah.
And my response was always like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think she would agree with, like, you're right, I don't, but I don't understand why you're doing this to yourself.
Sure.
And I didn't quite understand what she was talking about, and because I couldn't see it. I couldn't get out of my own way. Like, I was just this navel gazing, can't see past my nose. I've got to do this. I've got, like, on the strength of your own,
I got to clean it up myself.
Yeah, and it was like, man, and I think a struggle that I had for a long time is, I saw guys, and I remember talking to Chris about this, but I remember seeing guys in the game that, man, like, these guys they were just doing it right. Like, they bore for, like, one guy in particular for me was Adam Wainwright.
Mm-hmm.
Man, everywhere he went, and Justin Masterson was the same way, but Adam was a guy I met later in my career, and it's like, dude, this guy, he's got it figured out, and there was just such respect for him in the game, but also, like, in, like, the baseball chapel space and PAO and these other UPI and these other great organizations. Like, I viewed him, I was like, man, that's what I need to aspire to be. But this is me getting in my own way. Again, it was honestly for selfish reasons. Like, if I really peeled back the layers, it was like, man, I want to be viewed the same way Adam is viewed.
Yeah.
And, man, that was really unhealthy. Like, there's nothing concrete about that, because I'm fallen. Like, I need forgiveness. Like, I'm not a God. Like, I was, in a weird way, I was kind of acting like my own God. And, like, I was like, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Where it was like, no, you can't. Like, this is where, like, I've got to fall on my face and just surrender. And, that's how you just that's when you start to bear fruit and become, and being discipled. And, and the only way you can truly be discipled is by, we got to repent from some of this stuff that, you continually try and hide because you're afraid you're a phony or a fraud or whatever it is. And so I think, that was another, like, huge, like, a big barrier to my, like, taking that next step in my faith. And I just kind of stayed at that, not elementary level, but not far beyond it.
Crossing Home Plate is sponsored by College Baseball Fellowship. College Baseball Fellowship exists to reach college baseball players with the transformative truth of the gospel. Founded on a passion for both the game and the glory of Christ, CBF connects current and former MLB players with collegiate athletes, creating opportunities for mentorship, discipleship, and authentic spiritual growth. If you're a college coach or player and would like our team to visit, or you'd like to support CBF, you can learn more at collegebaseballfellowship.org. So in the kind of marriage arc, because you guys are, you're in a different space now.
Yeah.
What kind of, how'd that come about? What's sweet now that wasn't necessarily sweet then?
Yeah. I will say that probably the three most revealing things, probably the two most revealing things that I've gone through in my life. First one is marriage, and the second one is parenting. Like, having, like, getting married to someone, like, if you're not sure what your flaws are, get married.
100%.
You will figure out what they are, or they will be revealed to you in a way that you don't love.
Yeah.
If you're, like, not open to, like, having those conversations, that's where I was. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you think you'll figure it out in dating, but not even close.
Not even close. Yeah, not even close. And then when you have kids and they are now revealing to you who you are, your own gaps and stuff like that, those things. So I think, going through that journey. And the Lord is so, I used to look at too, like things like the 10 Commandments or tithing or praying. Like I used to view it as, like, from this legalistic lens. I used to view those things as merely, these are things that we need to do in order to be good Christians. Whereas in fact, those things they're parameters and they're gifts for us. Like they truly are gifts. Like if I can find a way to continually tithe, right? Like we're called to tithe joyfully. Yeah. And if I can be in a space with my heart and in my life where like I am joyfully giving, like what's better than that? Like where I'm joyfully giving, like what else is there? What's better than joy?
Yeah.
Right. Or praying, like, praying is not for the Lord. Praying is for me. It's for me to work through and to let go of some of these things that I'm holding on to. And things like the 10 Commandments, that's a framework to protect me.
Sure.
Like have no other gods before me. Like, okay, that means I need to get rid of my own identity that is tied to my career or my bank account or what I do or,
sure.
Or my kids, like if I can get rid of those things and I can rest in like who the Lord is, like, man, like what a good way to live your life.
Yeah.
And so those things started to be revealed to me through just being in community with my wife, but in my church, right? Like we go to the same church, and what an unbelievable place the Village Church is, right? And I'm so thankful for that place. But I had to start having those conversations with myself as my career was ending. And, I had more free time, I'd get released and I didn't get picked up right away, or, I'd show up on a Sunday during the season. And they're like, hey, like,
what are you doing
here?
Yeah.
Like, not sure, I'm just waiting for my phone to ring. And, but we went through this program at church called Steps, which was very intensive. Mm-hmm. And it was very hard. Like we went through it at the same time. But man, you talk about life-changing for me.
Yeah.
So redemptive, and just like this safe space with good biblical men to just lay it all out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first day, like the first session we walked out of there, man, I felt naked.
Yeah.
Like I was like, man, these guys, man, I hope I can trust them because they know everything about me now. Man, they've got all my deepest, darkest secrets. But man, there was such a freedom in that.
Yeah.
And then also too, like they were doing the same thing. And so like, it was like, man, like
same struggles.
Yeah. And it was like, man, sin is not like, there's no prejudice when it comes to it. Like the sin, like it's coming for us all.
Yeah.
And, especially as, like men, like a lot of men struggle with a lot of the same sin.
Sure.
And a lot of women struggle with a lot of the same sin. A lot of dads struggle with the same sin. Like I was, as a father, and this guy as a father is like, man, I pray for more patience. Like I, struggle with a lack of patience, not because my son is disrespectful, but because he is disrupting something that I want to do, it's like, man, if I really got to encounter that as a father, I'm glad my heavenly Father doesn't treat me the way that I treat my son.
Amen.
Yeah. And so that was something I really had to encounter. And so just being in biblical community more than anything, and creating and kind of cultivating this space for conversation, for honest conversation.
Yep.
And asking my brothers for prayer over these things, and like truly surrendering that. I think that is what really started to expedite my personal relationship with the Lord, and then my own understanding of who the Lord is, and and what we're truly here for. And then also too, like that started to manifest itself into my marriage, and then into my family as a father, and as a, ultimately too as a father, but as a disciple maker within my own family. Like, how do I disciple my family? How do I lead my family? And it's led me to new spaces now that I'm extremely grateful for. Like I'm teaching high school ministry now at the Village, and I've got ninth grade boys about to be 10th grade boys, and man, I couldn't be more thankful for that group and for those guys that I get to co-lead with, and man, it's just because they're still revealing things in me, and hopefully in a way that's honoring to the Lord, like I'm helping reveal things to them.
Sure.
Because that's what we're all here for. We're not here to try and lead, to try and pretend that we're leading a life that we're not.
Perfect lives, yeah.
Yeah, and we're here to we're truly just called to surrender. Like if not, then what did Jesus die for?
Yeah. Well, and I think the way you describe it, you grew up in a church similar probably to what I did, and really, before coming to the Village, and my wife and I went through steps when we got there. Gosh, probably in like 2008 or something.
Yeah.
And that was really the first time when I sat around with a group of guys, and guys dumped their junk.
Yeah.
And it was just so eye-opening. And for my wife, it was the same thing. It was like, wait a second, we're in a community here that's not afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just got done with a group of guys that, met each other last week.
Yeah.
And literally had a guy come in and go, hey, I'm struggling with this monster thing.
Yeah.
My life's in trouble.
Yep.
And the rallying that's come around this guy in a week, and where you can see God moving in that family in a week is amazing. But it started with confession to other dudes.
Yep.
And it's, hey, we're not whole. We're not fixed.
Yep.
We're all jacked up a bit.
100%. 100%. And that's why, you talk about like the beautiful thing that College Baseball Fellowship can do is, and this is where, like, if you can reorient your understanding of what it's for, right? Like if we can prioritize, or if we can organize and put things in the right order, like for me, FCA or even baseball chapel when I was in pro ball, like I did not have it in the right order, but I also in college, like I spent these 4 years of college with, not really having guys that I was in a locker room with on a daily basis or whatever, like talking about these things.
Sure. And
through baseball chapel and pro ball and through UPI, like another big one for me was another guy by the name of Luke Hoshaver, who was a guy like an Adam Wainwright, like a Chris Davis, who he just was like, man, this guy there's just fruit everywhere, right? Like he just had it. I'm not going to say he had it. None of us have it figured out, sure, right? But this guy was well beyond where I was, and he was making disciples. And he asked this question, and this is a super elementary question, but I immediately I was like, man, I don't know how to answer this. And it really struck me as like, bro, you better start. We better have some meetings with the Lord here. He just asked us as a group, why are you a Christian? Why are you a Christian? And I immediately went to this thought was like, because I want to be a good person. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad answer, but that's a very elementary legalistic answer.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to say. And he's like, dude, because Jesus came and he died for you. And that led me down this path of trying to rediscover the story of the gospel.
Yeah.
And really look at the gospel like with fresh eyes, and understand the gravity of it, because I think that's what, I had just, over time just kind of gotten away from understand the gravity of the
Sure.
gospel and what he truly did for us. And then, and then you talk about the story of the crucifixion. And this is one thing, this is the part of the gospel that I think drew me back in, and it gave me the weighty understanding and the emotional draw towards trying to have a intimate relationship with Christ, is of all the physical punishment and the social embarrassment and the ridicule and everything that Jesus went through in his time on earth and through the crucifixion, their true punishment that he bore for us wasn't, but it wasn't the nails. It wasn't the lashes. It was what broke Jesus in the flesh was he knew that he had to distance himself from the Father.
Yeah.
And so that there, like, no understanding, like, that was worse than any lash, than any nail, than any crown of thorns.
Yeah.
Like, that right there was like, man, he created distance from the Heavenly Father so that I could be tethered to the Heavenly Father through the Holy Spirit forever. Yeah. And that right there was like, that. I think that was like a huge turning point for me.
Sure.
Like, just revisiting that story of the gospel with fresh eyes and being able to understand that really kind of for the first time in my life at 26 years old.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I've had it all wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Chasing morality, chasing
I've had it all wrong.
Chasing a whatever and cleaning myself up to be good enough or whatever.
And I look back and I'm like, I'm so thankful for guys like Luke Hoshaver and guys like Adam Wainwright that they created these spaces for brotherhood, for discipleship that, for someone like me that I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing it right. I was leading Bible, baseball chapel on my team. And, there's like, dude, he created space for me to have that moment of like reorienting that I would have never had without it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. It's like, if we can just create those spaces, we're like, it's not our job to save our brothers or save our teammates or whatever it is. It's the Holy Spirit and the Lord does that. Sure. It's just it's our job as Christians first, and then as athletes and as teammates, just to try and create space for those conversations to take place and just dig into the Word together and let the Holy Spirit take over.
Sure. Well, and I think there's two things that you guys who made it, and the college player who would love to make it, having you guys being transparent with here's my struggle, which is the same as you, college player, and to be able to go in there and go, hey, I got the same stuff that I'm dealing with, I'm struggling with, always did, even through when I thought the career, so if the career is great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm still dead inside, Harb talked about it on our last episode, just hey, I was miserable inside and I'm empty and going through all this stuff. And so as good as complete game, punched out, whatever,
World Series,
and that whole all that was great, but I'm struggling on the way home, kind of thing. And so I think that's great. And I think the other thing that we're certainly trying to do is get some guys in place that, one of the things I hear from the college players is I'm concerned with sharing too much with even my own chaplain or somebody on the team because, hey, what if coach finds out and they go, hey, I'm going through stuff or whatever, and giving a safe place, to have some guys to talk to outside of that.
Yeah. I mean, fear of man is where a lot of it's a huge barrier for all of us, right? Like, we're afraid of what are others going to think? There could be consequences there, right? Like, I mean, but from my own experience, the consequences of not sharing or not bearing that out to someone are far greater than, these maybe some consequences from, from a coach or from a teammate or from, or just, court of public opinion.
Sure.
And I think one thing I want to be sensitive to with a lot of guys is, I think it can be easy or perceived as easy when, like a group of college baseball players, just like, because I remember being that guy, like that just got cut from my college team.
Yeah.
And I'm in JUCO, like, man, what the heck am I doing? Like, and I still had dreams of making it. Like, I think a lot of guys, like, I was a burn the boats guy. Like, I was like, there wasn't really a plan B for me. Like,
Yeah.
I was in. And there's a lot of guys that are doing that. And there's a lot of great, amazing college baseball players that, for whatever reason, it won't happen for them,
Yeah.
right? Like, they will not be Major League Baseball players. There's a lot of them that will.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great players. I hope as much of them as possible get to realize their dreams of playing professional baseball. But I think there may be this perception or this thought of like, wow, it's easy to sit here and talk about it. You made it.
Yeah.
Well, you made it. It's easy. It's like, that's true. Like, I did. But I will say, I think all of us have this idea of what our dream of what we want our career to be.
Yeah.
Or where we want to be, or, the goals we want to achieve.
Wish it was.
It was. And I'll say this, like, even though I was in the big leagues, like, I wish my career would have went differently, like all these different things. But I can look back upon all the things that didn't go the way that I wanted them to.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the Lord's hand in all of it. Yeah. And I am so thankful for that. Like, I'm thankful for the relationships that didn't work out. I'm thankful for the teams that I never played for.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for, honestly, the way I was living and my understanding of the gospel, and like just kind of where I was. Like, my career ended when it was supposed to. And if it didn't, like, if I would have gotten that 2 or 3 year deal that I wanted or whatever,
mm-hmm.
man, I don't know if my marriage is the way it is today. Yeah. I don't know if my relationship with my kids is the way it is today. I'm definitely not where I am in my walk with the Lord in today. So I'm extremely thankful for my dreams that didn't happen. And I just pray for all of the young men and they just student athletes and whatever, like, but in college baseball, like, that if you have things in the right order, like, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Like, the Lord did not grant us, he didn't promise us easy lives, but there's no better feeling than knowing and understanding that you're exactly where the Lord wants you to be.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of us, we spend our lives like, we're like, man, like, how am I gifted, or where am I supposed to be, or what is my, role in society, or whatever it is. Like, there's no better feeling than being like, I'm exactly where I need to be.
So I know one of the things and I've really just done it the last, say, year and a half, is just really journaling prayers and really going back so that I have that perspective of, hey, here's what God's been doing and being able to see. Have you walked back? I mean, clearly you've walked back. Is there a systematic way you do that? What's kind of your daily rhythm? So
my daily rhythm, so I spend some time in the Word, but I spend a lot of time in conversation. I process through words a lot of time, and I have a wife who's awesome. She's a biblical therapist, so she's easy to bounce stuff off of.
We all need one of those.
I know, and so she's great to sit and, just really kind of discuss things and bounce through things, but also too, like, the guys that I'm doing, high school ministry with, and just kind of my biblical community, we break out in discussion a lot, and a lot of times those guys, that core group of men that I've really formed relationships with, are ones that, just through conversation, that you can kind of revisit things, and they're like, hey man, I remember a year ago we were talking about this, and just having that group, and just making sure that you're creating space, whether it's on a weekly basis or monthly basis, for that community. And that's what, Sabbath thing on Sundays, like, being in church on Sundays and seeing, the guys at church, like, we sit with individuals at church, and, on Wednesday nights at, high school ministry. And so just creating that space for those checkups and those check-ins can really, but I've never been much of a journaler, although I probably should be, because everyone I know that does journal, there's a lot there. Like they get a lot out of it. Like just being able to revisit that. And so that is something I should definitely probably do more of, and it would definitely help me out. Because there are things that like I can look back upon now. I'm like, man, like if I'd have had the details really written out of like the prayers that I was having at the time.
Yeah, I'm not a super detailed guy, but it's enough to go, wait a second, we just prayed about that like 3 days ago, and here's my gratitude piece, and I think that's just for me been beneficial. But so now let's go. We got a few minutes left. At the end of career, one of the things, and I think we talked about this a few weeks ago too, with another former player that was at Texas Wesleyan there, it seemed like all you guys were talking about, hey, we thought it would be this gentle hill down, and it was a cliff.
It was.
All of a sudden it's over.
Yeah. I got pushed out of a plane essentially.
Okay.
And, it was, but yeah, it was hard. It was definitely, it was this, and it was, COVID was going on. And so it was just an interesting time in the game. But I did, like I said, like I was afforded an opportunity to experience, I had a moment with another dad and his son. And I was actually in deer camp.
Okay.
And, I was training, and, I was watching, and I was already wrestling with like, man, do I really want to continue to pursue this, And this son he was 12 years old, and he was just, we're all sitting around telling stories, and this 12-year-old kid, he wants to be a part of it, right? He's there with his dad, and he's got a mountain of stories with his dad, and I'm just like, man. And my sons were, I had 2 boys at the time. My wife was pregnant with our third, and I'm just like, that's what I want. Like more than anything, that's my desire. That's what I've prayed for.
Yeah.
And so, and I just was like, Lord, like make it known, just make it known, like close these doors. And I remember, I threw a bullpen a couple weeks after that. And the one thing I was kind of chasing is my velocity had kind of, declined over the last couple of years. And I'd been doing a lot of training, and like I threw a bullpen where I was throwing the hardest I've thrown in years. And instead of this feeling of like, yes, like let's go, it was like, oh man, like I wasn't excited. It was almost like I almost wish it would have been the opposite, because I would have known.
Yeah. And
I think right then and there, like not being excited about it was like, it's time. Like it was this very clear, like it's time. And I was thankful for that, and the only way I would have had that reaction to that is by being gifted with that moment of that father and son.
Yeah.
Like that was the only, that
brought you clarity.
That set up my feelings towards, awesome. Retirement. And then, what's funny is like, I had this grand idea of what I wanted to do post-retirement. Like I was like, man, I want to be doing this. I want to be doing this. I want to be doing this. And a year after I was done playing, I was like, man, I'm so glad I'm not doing those things.
Yeah.
Like, man, I am so glad I'm not doing those things, because the Lord had so much better things for me.
That's great.
That I didn't even know about.
Yeah.
And, I'm still kind of exploring those things, but yeah, like that cliff it was hard. It was fast. And there was a lot of conversations that was going on. I'm thankful for some of the leadership at our church. Like I got to sit and talk with Trevor Joy for a period of time, and those conversations helped provide a little bit of, I guess, comfort and clarity, and like, hey, like there's a lot here that's going to be new and unknown, and it's all good. Yeah. It's all good, and that kind of, it's just kind of this comfort and safety in knowing that like I've got this biblical community around me that's kind of they're going to walk through it with me. And so that was a definite, Yeah, it was almost like this, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
You kind of felt permission.
Yeah.
Felt
Yeah. Because it is one of those
yeah.
things where it's like, man, you walk away, like, you can't really, you know, it's like,
You can't
it's
go
such a
back. Yeah.
definitive moment, you know, where it's like, man, this is all I've done.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 34, you know, it's all I've done my whole life. And
It's wild.
so it was wild. It was exciting, but also scary, very scary.
No, it's a huge flip in the book,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So kind of last thought here. If you were talking to the college player today and beyond, hey, what are you going to do with Jesus? That's your number one question. But then in perspective with the rest of the journey through college, what would you say?
In regards to their time in college?
Yeah. What should your daily be? I mean, kind of what you guys have said is, hey, enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. We don't, you know, what would you add to that?
You know, I would say, I would challenge you first of like, man, I would really challenge you to spend some time with yourself and try and put things in the proper order. Because if they're not, like, even if things are going well now, if you don't have them in the proper order, like, it's merely a house of cards. You can't build a big, beautiful wall that will last and stand the test of time if the foundation is weak.
Yeah.
And so I would really challenge you to put things in the proper order. And that, by proper order, I mean really trying to build a biblical community around you, or just, you know, put yourself in a place where you can grow with other guys, with men, you know, and you know, try and seek someone out, whether that's a father or someone at your church, or someone who exalts wisdom and can help you walk through, you know, some of these new challenges that are ahead of you.
Sure.
And that's the community that we're supposed to have around us, right? That's why at our churches we have, you know, elders and deacons, and, you know, those things are gifts to us by the Lord. So prioritize those things. And then also understand that, the Lord wants all the things that you want for yourself. Like, he wants you to achieve these things. Like, it's not that, you know, he's rooting for this guy over this guy. Like, that's not how it works. But also know that wherever you end up, like, if things are in the proper order, wherever you end up, then that's better than what you had planned for yourself. Like, the Lord has something. If the Lord closes doors on you, it's because he has something better planned for you.
It's grace to you.
Yeah. And so just know that. And it's not easy, because we all desire things, and we delight in things that, and those desires and delight are good things, but they maybe aren't what you think they are for you. And then also too, like, as a athlete and as a player, like, understand, like, regardless of, I mean, you could have a 20-year major league career. You're going to be a former player a lot longer than you are a current one. And the legacy of your life will not be your stats. It will not be your ERA. It will not be your batting average. It won't be, you know, your OPS, you know, all this stuff.
Sure.
It will be how you treated people.
Mm-hmm.
It will be what you did for your community, how you, like, the fruit that you bore throughout your life. Like, you know, in 20 years, when people talk about Adam Wainwright or Chris Carpenter or, you know, some of these guys, they'll talk about some of the accolades they made in their life, but 80% of that conversation is going to be on, man, how that guy impacted these people, or how this guy impacted this community, or how this guy impacted this organization. Yeah. And that, I mean, that can break generational sin. It can break, you know, I mean, it does so much more than what you do on a field. And so, you know, train your tail off, you know, like, pursue it with absolute intensity and with everything you've got, but it has to be in the right order.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
This was great.
Thank you.
We knocked out an hour like that. It seemed like nothing,
We could
right?
do another.
So,
I could do another hour.
yeah, there you go. But we only have our folks for an hour here. So, but hey, thanks. And then, again, college coaches, players, we want to bring the College Baseball Fellowship team into your program, talk to your guys, give them this kind of wisdom. So if that's, we're open to that, and we'll do that as much as we can. And then if you want to learn more about College Baseball Fellowship, collegebaseballfellowship.org, and we look forward to it. Thanks
Absolutely.
again.
Yeah, thank you very much. And like he was saying, like, we're a resource. So if you guys, anybody want, I would love to be a resource for, some of these guys, because I have a heart for guys going through it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks a lot.